as discussing our potential joint powers entity agreement. So with that, I will start. We actually do have a review of the minutes from the last meeting as a agenda item, so I can just share my screen real quick. So just give me a second and I will share my screen. And we'll just take a quick moment to go over those. Okay, so I'll just give you all, it's just really just the three communities vote on this. So Bob, seeing as you are here, I think we would look for a vote from you and Ben.
Even though I wasn't at the meeting, Stephanie?
Well, Tom represented, I mean, Tom could actually also,
Yeah,
typically Tom's been doing it. So as long as someone from Pelham does.
yeah. So Tom, I'll let you do that one, okay? Because I wasn't there.
Sounds good, Bob. Makes sense. Thanks. Stephanie, are you thinking you're sharing your screen?
Am I not?
I don't see it. It could
No.
be
Okay,
me.
let me see. I'm sorry. Can you see it now?
It's coming.
It's starting, yeah.
Yes.
All right, good. Sorry about that.
Hey, Anna. Hello? Hello?
$35 miles. Right. Before you have to do anything.
Adele, we're hearing you.
I just muted.
Okay. Stop sharing. People good?
Mhm.
All right, so I just need a motion to approve the minutes and it has to be either Ben or Tom.
I move to approve the minutes.
Tom, you want a second? All right, and motion to approve the minutes, Ben,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Minutes are approved. Okay. So we can move on. So our next agenda item is public comment. I'm not sure, let's see. We do not have any attendees. So no public comment. So with that, we can move on to our Valley Green Energy updates. And as Paul is here, I'm going to just hand this over to Paul to update us.
You bet. Thanks, Stephanie. So there are a few things I can talk about. I can talk about whatever you're interested in. One is I just couldn't remember whether we talked together about the launch and how that went. So I could talk about that for a second. I could talk about the one odd thing that happened with the launch was an unusually high percentage of returned mail in Northampton. And talk about,
Insanely high. I mean, we have the box here. It's a huge box of postcards.
So yes, so we can talk about that, and then we can just do a brief sort of check-in on the Wamiko basic service prices, which is something I know that we did talk about. Um, so I'll tick through those things quickly. So generally on the launch, it went very smoothly. You had a slightly lower than normal opt-out rate, only 4 or 5%, which is low and very solid. You had a reasonably normal distribution between accounts going on to the standard product, accounts choosing to opt up to green or to opt down to basic. Standard was 96%. The green option was 1%, which is about typical. Your basic option was 3%, which is actually a little low. So sometimes we even have a higher percentage of folks going for the basic than you have. The one thing you did have that was unusual, which is the other topic, was the return rate in Northampton. So it's always the case that there's some percentage of returns, and you see them first in those opt-out postcards not the opt-out postcards, sorry, the coming soon postcards, and those are the ones that would have arrived at the municipal offices. And then separately, when the opt-out mailing goes out, it goes to the same addresses. And some of those always come back. When they come back, the supplier does not enroll those accounts because the account holder didn't receive the notice. So it's very common, to see a return rate on the order of about 5%. And that's mostly because there's just turnover in accounts. There's a lot of turnover, and there's more in some places than in others. And typically the return rate is higher in cities than in towns, and it's driven often by the more rental housing you have, typically the higher percentage of returns, just because on average, renters turn over more frequently than homeowners do. So when the person changes, the account will go to the person if based on whatever the list was generated. If the account holder has changed since the list was generated, it gets mailed to the old person, not the new person, so it gets returned. So there's always some of that. The new people get brought into the program over time, but there's always this turnover to deal with. So Amherst, Pelham, I think, had a return rate of less than 1%. Amherst was about 4%, which is normal, about what we see. Northampton's was much higher at 11%. So I think it's partly being more rental housing in Northampton, probably. But we have also had a problem with the National Grid addresses. They've not been as good, as clean as the addresses we get from Eversource, and we have been seeing higher return rates in National Grid communities. So what we did was we took the list of all the returns from the initial mailing in Northampton, and then when it came time to do the first mailing to new accounts, we took that list of returns, we compared it to the list of the current basic service customers. So that would be which of those returns are still live accounts. Roughly half of them were. So we did another cleanup, like a more careful, tried to clean up the addresses and remailed to those people whose mailings had been returned the first time and were still active accounts on basic service. So the results of that were okay, but not great. So about 25% of the people whose mailings had been returned originally, the mailings were delivered, and those people have been now enrolled in the program. Very small number opted out, like 1-2%, but then we still had close to 75% returns again the second time around. Now, you'd expect some number of returns, but that still seems like a lot. So we'll take another look when we get the next list of active basic service. We'll take a look at this again. We'll see if there's anything further we can do on the addresses. and see if there's more we can do. It's not a huge number of accounts at this point. It's like 500 accounts.
Mhm.
Couple hundred of those are probably legitimate returns because there's been turnover in those addresses. Still a little higher than usual. We looked to try to find patterns in the addresses, well, like whether there was one like error in the addresses that had been repeated in multiple, but we didn't see any kind of anything that looked like a pattern. They weren't all on the same street. They weren't all formatted the same way. So it's a little unusual, but we've winnowed it down anyway from where it started. And then just the final thing to mention, which we did talk about last time, was the Wamiko basic service prices, which are so low right now. As we talked last time, it's because wholesale electricity prices took a real dip right after this fall because it was just so warm. No one used any natural gas. And so there's all this extra gas. So there was this temporary real dip in the market. And Wamiko happened to go out to bid for basic service right at the absolute low point. Eversource East went out a couple weeks later, their prices are higher. National Grid went out, I think a month later, their prices are much higher, but Wamiko had this real dip. So the only thing to report there is wholesale prices are back to normal now. Wamiko will go out to bid again for their next basic service price in May, and which is for a price that takes effect in August 1st. Presumably they'll be back up, normal where they were before this dip. We just had this aberration due to the very unusual weather that we had this fall. Kind of hard to remember that warm fall after the cold winter we had, but it was just ridiculously warm this fall.
Paul, do you think, because we had an extended period of cold, will that maybe impact the prices, to make them a bit even higher than usual?
It's possible. We've certainly seen a short-term effect. So the last, as we were coming out of the, say January, February prices were up then. There's probably, they've come back down a little bit now since we're kind of out of the winter months. And certainly by the time we're at May, weather-related effects should have cleaned out. Who knows though, with all the other effects we see going on. There's, like concern about tariffs and other things. So we'll have to see what happens to those. That's all unknown at the moment. I did speak to First Point. They said so far there's been no effect on them from the tariffs, but like everybody else, they think tomorrow could be different, but no effect so far.
Anybody have any questions for Paul? Go ahead, Darcy.
Yeah, I just wondered what the status is of getting more individualized customer information from Eversource and National Grid so we can, target big users.
Oh, you mean like for the folks who are not in the program now?
No, all the customers. We I think have had the idea from the beginning that once we launch, we have access to more granular data about individual customers.
Mhm.
So do we have that now, or can we ask for it?
So we have it now. So what we get is a report with monthly use for each customer in the program. And that's also actually in the commission reports, I think that the towns get too. And so we can certainly use that if you wish to understand energy use in the big customers. Are you thinking of this from like an energy efficiency perspective, just so, inform an energy efficiency campaign? So yes, we can do that at any time.
So the towns, the staff currently are aware of where that is in the towns. Each of the towns has that data.
I think if you're getting commission reports, but you can certainly get it from me. So if there are, which might be the easiest way, because I can like organize it for you. But whatever information the town would like, I can put it together for you.
And is that public information or just for the towns?
Right, it would be just for the town. So individual customer use is considered confidential information. So, that the municipalities would want to be really careful about sharing it or how they use it. So, but it's certainly something you can use to inform things you might want to do so that you might want to figure out, trying to think of things people have used it for. So, you might want to sort of target a particular user. You can do for outreach, you can do things like that. The opposite extreme, which of course you wouldn't do, is you wouldn't publish a list of the highest energy users in town. You wouldn't do that. So you want to, but you can use it internally. And different cities and towns who have wanted to do this have generally been careful about even sort of how they communicated how they were using it. So, for example, they might target a particular type of user, but they wouldn't send them a letter saying, well, we looked at all your energy use information and we've decided that, you're a good candidate for X, Y, and Z. Typically towns don't do it that way, but they could still do outreach to those customers. And then often towns have done it to do outreach for community solar or programs for low-income customers or things like that. There's a lot of different things we could do, or that you could do, and we would be delighted to help you do.
And-
Just
Oh,
speaking from a town perspective or city perspective, I would just say and we've had this discussion via email that it exposes the residents to unwanted public record if we're just kind of sharing that information directly. Then it becomes part of the public record. And if we just went and shared with you like the file, or as I just said, here's who uses the most or something, that could be a violation of privacy. So if it's possible to get, say, an address list from Paul of the 90th percentile users or something like that, so that it's not, here's the actual kilowatt hours these people used in that month, but it's just like, these are the big McGillas, and that you got it, if you're wanting to take an action, if you got it directly from Paul rather than getting it from the city, I feel like that's a lot safer.
I just want to let Bob go because he has his hand raised.
I'm sorry.
That's
Thank
okay.
you. So Paul, what difference, if any, will the implementation of the smart meters? I know that Eversource, has sent out all kinds of stuff here in Pelham. I'm guessing the same is true in Amherst, that they're moving to the smart meters starting this summer. What difference, if any, will that make in terms of what we learn and can understand about energy usage of our customers?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I mean, as you probably know, the Western Mass communities are the first ones to go with this, so we don't have the direct experience. It's not entirely clear to me yet what data will be shared, like whether we would have access to the interval data, the hourly data, or the every 15-minute data, whatever it is. So it will be interesting to see that. The hope is that it will enable new things, including different kind of pricing options that we could offer customers. So, customers that are different rates at different times of day, for example, things like that. It's a really interesting area, and one we'll have to figure out a bit as it goes. There's not to overly complicate, but there's an interesting twist in that the times of use that are expensive for supply purposes can be different from the times of use that are expensive for distribution purposes. So if the utility were to offer a time of use distribution rate, it might not match up with the time of use rate that suppliers would want to offer. So it'll be interesting to see how we reconcile those. We don't have experience trying to do that yet.
Oh, thank you.
Interesting.
I don't want to lose the thread too of what we were just talking about supplying data. I think we did have this conversation. I think you might have missed a meeting, a few meetings back, Darcy, where we actually did talk about the getting data and public access. So I think, I know that we certainly had concerns. I know Ben and I certainly had concerns. And I think Bob was there at that particular meeting too, about account information and not being able to, like, once we receive data, we can't share it with you because then it becomes public access. So I think the idea of going with Paul providing something, but I think it should go through the communities. I don't think it should be directly relayed to LEA, just go through the communities and, provide us what information you can. I was thinking, I think we had talked about even doing it by like neighborhoods, identifying blocks of groups that, it might make sense to contact like folks in that neighborhood to sort of follow up with them and sort of target them. So I don't know if that's the kind of thing that you would be helpful and that you'd be looking for.
I guess I'm assuming this is something that this group would be looking for.
Well, yes, I know, but you were, when you mentioned it, I thought you were talking from a Leah perspective. So I just wanted to double check on who's, who you're asking to get that information. Because we do get some information, but it has account data on it, so we're not, we can't share it. But we discussed it, I thought it was the last meeting, but maybe it was the one prior, where we were talking about just sort of doing a general identification of a few accounts that seemed to have higher usage rates than others. So we do have some data.
Okay, well, that's good. I also wondered about, did we decide that we're not going to push the third-party provider list until the prices, until the pricing situation is more advantageous?
Yeah, in Amherst, we're not doing anything until August, till the next round of pricing, and then we'll do outreach.
And
Thank you,
Northampton, does
I'm-
Northampton have the list?
I'm trying to remember what this is, pushing a third-party provider list?
Trying to get a list from Eversource and National Grid.
Oh, of who is still on a
Customer.
third-party provider.
Right.
I mean, I think that's something that we should want to try and do. Yeah, I get why Amherst would want to wait. Amherst and Pelham would want to wait. We could certainly try and figure out how to get it, but I guess and Paul, maybe you have the guidance on that. Seems like it's not easy.
Yeah, so the answer there is that historically that it was more than not easy, it was impossible. So the utilities would not provide that data. Recently, though, in the new aggregation guidelines that the DPU issued, they included a provision that directed the utilities to use their best efforts, quote unquote, to provide the data if municipalities asked for it. So we could ask, or I could ask on your behalf if you wanted it, and we'll see what we get back. We have asked for this for one other community, and it simply never arrived. So, but that may just be because it's a new thing and the utilities traditionally didn't do it. I think that because of this new provision, we could probably get National Grid to give us a list. I think what they literally provide is a list of everybody, and then we could screen out the people who are in the program and also the people who are on basic service, because separately we get a list of who's on basic service, so we could figure out who's remaining. Those would be the people on third-party support.
That's what makes sense. And then you've got the list, and I would assume that the approach would be to send them a mailer. Again, on city city letterhead or whatever. And yeah, for the, for Northampton, yeah, as soon as that list was available, we would be in favor of reaching out to those people.
And Paul, I was under the impression from Marlena that outreach for Northampton already happened. Am I incorrect? Because I thought she had, I mean, we were talking about the fact that Amherst, we would wait to do that, but I thought with Northampton that was already moving forward, or it just maybe hasn't happened yet.
So it could be, I wasn't aware of it, but it could be that we did and I forgot. So I can check on that and leave it to see, either let you know if we have already requested it, or if not, we will request it. We'll see from National Grid and we'll report back on what we get.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it was requested. I just mean in terms of notifying. I thought you all were making an effort to notify those folks who were on third-party suppliers after the initial, program launched, that you were going to do some outreach, but because Eversource was impacted by the pricing, that ours was going to wait till August, but that Northampton's outreach was going to happen sooner and that you all were doing that. I just want to be clear about the process.
Yeah, no, so we wouldn't, like, we can help you to get the list, and if you want to do, like advertising or, or sort of, social media, something like that, we could help with that. We wouldn't do a mailer though.
Wouldn't.
We would not, we wouldn't have the budget for that.
Okay. Well, we could certainly find a way to do a mailer, or put something in water bills, maybe, which actually I think would probably be more effective in some ways than a mailer that seems like it's coming from some scammy company, But yeah, if we had a list, I would definitely pursue outreach, because it would benefit our community.
Yeah.
And
And at the appropriate time, we would do the same.
Yeah.
And we could certainly help, not only with this, but we could help, develop whatever that mailer is. So like
That
we
would be
could,
great.
help design it or whatever else, help
Yeah.
you there. It's just the one thing we wouldn't do is pay to mail it. So we would.
Right. And I think we can, as soon as I know it's a thing to try and do, I'll ask the mayor, how do I get it done? And she'll have ideas. And, I'll figure it out.
Same here. Yeah, I know we would include it, we would probably try to include it with additional or other scheduled mailings. I know water bills are a big one. So we would do the same. And Bob, how about for you or Tom? I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead. You have your hand raised.
I just raised it at that second, so, kind of, more administrative than anything, but I believe it's referred to as the commissioning report. I think those are mailed to each, locality, and Bob, I checked with Susanna. I didn't have it in I think it was in the last meeting that Northampton and Amherst presented theirs. I did not have one. We thought it might have gone to the office. Susanna didn't think that it was there. So,
I have not seen it. That's
yeah,
not there.
okay.
It's not in
Okay.
the box. And in answer to your question, Stephanie, we would wait, just like Amherst, and do it at the same time.
Okay.
We're affected by the same rates as you guys. So.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's so unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Paul while we have him here?
Well, I guess just to follow up, how do we get the Pelham commissioning
Yep.
report?
I'll check into that. As I believe what happens is that First Point sends them directly to one person per
Right.
municipality. I can find out where it's going in Pelham, or do you know where you would like it to go?
Well, okay. It should go to the select board at the Roads Building, 341 Amherst Road, 351 Amherst Road, right? 351 Amherst Road, Pelham.
And I'm sure this is an email delivery, so.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an email delivery.
Oh,
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay. Whoa. So I should You know, let me check before you do anything, Paul. Let me check to make sure I didn't get anything, and then I'll get back to you.
I don't recall giving an email address either, so maybe if you can find out what email address it went to, Paul.
Yeah, I can ask him. I think that this would all have been set up as part of the process on First Point forwarding the adder payments to the town. So they probably asked for the address for the report at the same time. I'll ask them where they're sending it and let you know that.
Yeah, especially if they're emailing us money.
Yeah, well, the money's going somewhere.
I
You
know,
told them
I
where to
know,
put the
yeah.
money. So I think
Yeah.
if that wasn't working, they would have told me about it. So I'll double check there. But I think it's just this spreadsheet that comes every month that we need to track down.
Thank you.
So Paul, because you brought it up and we have you here, um, you mentioned how tariffs might potentially impact pricing, and I'm assuming that has to do with, materials and distribution for energy, or is it just even in the development of infrastructure, other infrastructure?
Well, I mean, it could be in a whole bunch of ways. What the particular thing I was thinking of was tariffs on the electricity that's sent from Canada into New England. So if a tariff were to be imposed on that, somebody would have to pay it. Now, the exact effect of that is something that hasn't happened yet. So, I mean, people would have to figure out whether what impact that would have on anything. It could be just something that the suppliers have to absorb. They promised a price and things changed and they're still have to commit to their price. If it counts as something which is called a change in law, a new regulatory rule, they would have some opportunity to adjust prices to account for these new costs. I think it's all pretty speculative so far, and it's something we'll just have to see how it develops. So far, there hasn't been an effect, but it could affect prices. If it affects prices, it's going to affect prices for everybody: basic service prices, aggregation prices, third-party supply prices, everybody's prices. But it hasn't so far.
And I just went through did a search of my emails. There's nothing that was sent to me that, yeah, it's not, I don't have it.
It may have gone to Susanna too. We should check. Ask
Yeah,
Susanna.
it may have, but she would, anyway, okay.
I'm just, in
I'll
potential
check with her.
pathways.
Yeah,
Well, Paul, just one follow-up on that. It's hard to keep track of what's going on with the tariffs. Has the hydro or the Canadian hydro tariff been taken off the table as of last week, I think? Is that still the case? Do you understand?
I don't know. I'm unable to keep up with it. So
Mm,
the only thing I do know is I did talk to First Point about it, and they said there hadn't been any effect on them so far, and that they don't buy power directly from Canadian producers, so they weren't anticipating a problem unless ISO New England imposed a new cost on
Right.
everybody
Right.
because of these tariffs. That would be the only thing they could envision that would affect them.
That sounds good in the short term for Valley Green Energy, that they don't use Canadian suppliers. So
Well,
without commenting on any of the other aspects of this, so.
Just Bob and Tom, just so you're aware, the commission or the reports that we got were from First Point. So just so you know, that's, look for the First Point correspondence.
and that's exactly what I did.
Oh,
I
okay.
I searched for First Point in my inbox, and it's nothing. There's not, well, I have things, but nothing like this.
Okay. Well, yeah, Paul, we might need you all to maybe check on that
Sure.
for.
Yeah, we can definitely ask. And I'll also say those reports, they're they're great for seeing how much money you're getting. They can be a little tricky for trying to calculate energy use by month because they're tied around the utility payment schedule. So it's when the utility pays First Point, then First Point puts these in their report. So we can, if you need, help you interpret them or provide parallel information, which might be a little easier to decipher, which is more around usage periods than utility payment periods.
That would be great if you all could provide something on the usage, your sort of take on what that means, because, we're just looking at the numbers and, looking at the sort of the face value of what it says. So if you have some other insight as to something that could give us a more accurate picture, that would be great in terms of the usage,
Yes, we'll send that. Yeah, we'll send that separately.
Okay, that'd be great. All right. Sorry, I'm just making notes for myself. Any other questions or comments, concerns for Paul before he goes? Okay, well, Paul,
Right.
thank you always for everything. We really, really appreciate everything you all do and your team does for supporting us in this effort. Really great. So happy
Right.
to have you with us.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you all, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay,
Thanks a
so
lot,
much.
Paul.
Bye. Okay, so next order of business is Leah updates.
You want to go first, Andra?
Sure. So we wanted to both let you know about programs that are upcoming and invite you. And also one last thing from our discussion with Maggie Downey of Cape Light Compact was interesting, that they use, I believe she described it as a proprietary hedging strategy in their putting out for bids or actually the contracting of the electricity. And they do it, my understanding is every 6 months, there's either the opportunity to adjust the rate or they do adjust the rate, and they time it to when the utility is also out to bid. And so they are much more likely to get a similar or lower rate than the utility that way. And they started doing that many years ago, after a period of time when they ended up higher than the utility rate and got a lot of flack for it. Just a thought about a different way of doing it. I don't know if it's better.
Yeah, I think, when we were securing the current rate, we had options on the table of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. We opted for the 2 year as kind of the middle ground. And I think especially in launching, there was a reason why we wanted to sort of go with something, a little bit longer to secure the pricing. I mean, certainly it's working for Northampton as it, was meant to. It's unfortunately not working for Pelham and Amherst in the same way, but we didn't know that. So, I mean, I think I certainly trust Paul's experience with having done this for other communities for a good amount of time, and especially with the number of communities that he's dealt with. So, we can certainly talk about that possibility, but I think, that's something I'd want to have him weigh in on and have the discussion, but it's worth the discussion.
I mean, the general rule about hedging, right, is you are paying for someone else to take your risk, right? That's the essence of what it is. So you will lower your downside risk, in this case, higher prices, but you lose some of your opportunity to capture lower prices, right? I mean, that's just the nature of what that is. We are not currently doing that as a city. We locked in a price that we thought was going to be pretty low, and we're going to stick with it in terms of municipal thing. But we are looking at, when this contract is over, working with a company, what are they called? Competitive Energy Supply, another big energy supplier, who has a proprietary hedging strategy. And, and we're at least going to explore with them what, essentially what are the downsides to, trying to pay a little bit in terms of opportunity in order to gain stability. But it's a pretty complicated thing, and no one can predict the future. I would say, unlike, say, investing in securities, it's actually in some ways less predictable and more volatile than the stock market versus government bonds. and so it's a more challenging hedging problem than we'd find in finance. But yeah, we should explore that 2 years from now.
So, and you'll have had some experience with it by then, yeah.
Or at least had more chance to explore it.
Okay. And Darcy, was I supposed to say anything else, or were you gonna do that?
I was just going to remind people, I mentioned at the last meeting that, and I gave the wrong bill number, FYI. Paul Fenn's presentation on Tuesday, upcoming at the Local Energy Advocates General Meeting, March 25th. And he's going to talk about the bill 2061. It actually has a new number, and I don't know what the new permanent number is, but that's the initial docket number, 2061. And we hope you can come to that to hear about this bill that's focused on CCAs, facilitating the use of DER and energy efficiency by facilitating the process through DPU. And the following month in April, on April 22nd, we're going to have a representative of HEAT come and speak about geothermal networks, including the one in Framingham, but because we're very interested in the prospect of, spreading that technology. So we hope that you can come to that one too. You should all be getting our mailings. Are you all getting our mailings?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm not, I have to double check because I'm not positive that I'm getting, I get a lot from you. Darcy, is it from you or will it say from Leah?
It'll say it's from me.
Oh, yeah, then I'm getting.
Okay, I think I'm getting them. I'm sorry, and those are both at 7 p.m. just for people who
Right,
might be listening.
7 p.m. on March 25th is the Paul Fenn bill, and April 22nd is the geothermal network program presentation.
And
Also
I'm not getting anything from you, Darcy.
Oh, is that Bob?
Yes.
I'm looking at the minutes, so I'm not seeing you. Okay, I will put you on the list.
Thank you.
You have his email address, Darcy?
Local Energy Advocates has an email address, but I usually just use my email address, which is DUMINT It's
I'll,
one.
I'll send you both an email. That way you'll have it.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, fantastic.
And Tom, you're using the pelhammass.gov email for me, right?
I am.
Good. Okay, good. Yeah.
Any other updates? Any community updates? Ben, do you want to give a quick update on what you all are doing with your heat pump program and your energy advocate effort?
I mean, you know, the update is that it's going. We're about to hire the energy advocate, so that we've had all the applications and screened the applications, and we're about to hire that person. Not relevant to you guys, but the person's housed in East Hampton, and East Hampton has hired a new sustainability coordinator. I forget what her title is, Sophie. So we're working with her. The version that you saw on the minutes that we talked about last time about this particular outreach to low income is changing because we're learning more about how to do it best. So it looks like Co-op Power is actually going to be the lead applicant for the grant, and the basic structure is going to be enhanced outreach to low income communities and creating a package that is a very, very simple package of weatherization heat pumps and community solar subscription to, you know, basically make it cheaper. And that's kind of the way to get people in, make it really, really easy. They fill one thing out one time, and then the rest of it is handled on the back end. And because we have Revise is going to be the home performance contractor that Mass CEC is running for the East Hampton, Northampton Energize or Electrify program, basically they become the recipient of that lead, but it's kind of just a prepackaged lead that includes the subscriptions. And the truth is, I mean, we're starting Northampton, East Hampton because that kind of overlaps with the program, keeps it simple. But the idea is to get this package to be streamlined, make sense, and be easy to do outreach for, and that Co-op Power could then extend it to your communities. You know, it should be something that is not tied. So, you know, like Northampton is a participant, and it was kind of our idea, but they're the primary driver going forward, so they can move wherever they have capacity.
Thanks, Ben. That's great to know. I mean, I think so.
Fantastic.
Amber's
Yeah.
program has started. It officially launches April 1st, but we've already got some pilot projects that are underway. We had an information session with CET the other night. They're going to be present at the Sustainability Festival, which is being held on April 26th on the town common. So folks can actually, you know, go to the booth and talk to folks from CET directly there as well. Then there'll be another information session online in September. But it's good to know about the Co-op Power Initiative because, you know, when this program ends, I mean, this is ARPA funded, everything has to be done by the end of August. So, I'm sorry, 2026. So, you know, we'll have to wrap up and make sure that all of our funds are expended by then. But nice to know that sort of moving beyond that, you know, Co-op Power will have something established that might be useful and supportive of continuing these efforts. So that's great to know.
Yeah, and that will, if we get it, we don't necessarily have it, but if we get the grant, that'll support a person for 3 years. And then we'll see what we can do with funding, but hopefully it becomes a self-sustaining. Basically, it's just meant to streamline things, make it just a little easier.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. I hope that's the message that Mass Save is getting about, you know, all of this is that it just needs to be, I think this sort of idea of packaging in a useful way. You know, it's just because it's a lot. I think it's a lot for homeowners and even for the program administrators. I just feel like even, you know, the way we're doing it is, you know, it'll be time intensive for the CET reps who meet with the homeowners. I think, you know, they'll have to spend significant time. So, you know, especially because we're really trying to move people towards the weatherization piece first. So, Okay, that's the only updates. Any Pelham updates or information you want to share?
No, not me. I don't know if you have any, Tom.
I don't, I mean, I tried to connect with Tony, not his fault, mine, but, you know, Pelham does have an electrification initiative underway, and what I reached out to Tony about was to try to figure out how to integrate the Valley Green offering within that overall program. So,
Hmm.
it, yeah, I will get to that. And it might even be worthwhile having Tony come to the next or one of the next meetings and give an overview to the group. I think, you know, what Leah and what Northampton are doing are great models, and we definitely can learn and maybe piggyback onto them.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to our next item, which is, I guess we can review this I sent the document to everybody, the list of tasks. This is what, Erin O'Toole from BCK Law had provided us when we hired them, when we were first sort of discussing moving towards developing the intermunicipal aggregation and developing a joint powers entity. And this is just kind of some items she gave us. It's kind of a punch checklist. And they really have to do with, you know, things the JPE will do when it is established. But I think for me, it sort of flags some of the things that like need to be in place. And I know we talked about developing the business plan. I still think, you know, it wouldn't, you know, we do have some funds. I think we have like $29,000 remaining in the funds that weren't spent, that we got, that were from the appropriated funds from our legislators from way back in the beginning. So there's like 29,000 left in that. And I'm personally, I think it would be worth trying to have someone develop, you know, or hiring someone to develop the business plan. Because I think us trying to sort of do that, I think it'll be more efficient. And I would personally like to sort of advocate that as a next step. I don't feel ready to move a JPE forward at this point. I think we need to get that business plan developed and review that and see what it's entailed. And then I think, you know, we can, hopefully that'll give us time too for an accumulation of more of our financial resources coming in from the CCA that we can use towards developing this, because our adder is for administrative support, right? So if we get a business plan developed and we start developing or start accumulating more funds, we could use those to support the position that could maybe then start looking into, you know, implementation, like bringing someone on, and that could be one of the first tasks they do, is kind of work on implementation of the business plan. I'm just talking off the top of my head about sort of how I see the sequence of how that could work. If others have other thoughts, I'm happy to hear them. Go ahead, Darcy.
I just have a question about the use of the $29,000. Is that something that the executives would need to sign off on, or is that just ours? The working group has authority over it, or
No,
what?
No, well, I mean, so it's being held in an account in Amherst. I think we just have to make sure that we're, you know, like any kind of action, we just have to make sure it's being utilized specifically for the purpose tied to what the funds were intended for. So there just has to be some, you know, like development, we'll have to develop an RFP, put out an RFP, have responses, do interviews, like we'll have to go through that process in securing someone to develop the business plan. So in that sense, you know, yes, there's process. I mean, we can't just take the funds and spend them however we want. I think we need to be careful. And this, to me, would be an excellent use of those funds. Again, I would, you know, Bob, maybe as a municipal official, you want to weigh in on that?
I think your idea of bringing someone in to do a business plan is right on. I can't imagine what contribution I would make to such an endeavor without any kind of expertise and guidance from people who do this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I support your idea, Stephanie.
Um, Ben, do you want to weigh in for
Yeah, I
Northampton?
mean, I just to say that I agree that like you need a business plan. It needs to be I mean, the idea behind a business plan is often here's evidence, here's proof that we've worked through what we're going to do, why we're the best ones to do it. You should be able to go to a bank and they would want to invest in you doing your business plan, right? That's that. And, if it's just kind of put together, kind of seat of the pants, like an earlier thing from last time was the idea that the budget is the business plan. Somebody said that, but like some from Cape Light or Compact or something, but that's not a business plan. The business plan says, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And why do we believe we'll be successful at that? And so I think having a process and an expert to execute that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, the fact that we have the funding that should be able to get that should be enough to pay someone to put together a plan. And we have to do all the legal municipal appropriations or not sorry, procurement steps that are required.
Right. And you're talking about like for securing a legal counsel, insurance and those kinds of things? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, yeah, those two. I'm thinking about first, you just need to develop a business plan and you need to hire someone to do that. And you need to be able to, at all the steps that you described that are kind of legal requirements for procurement have to be, we have to do those.
Right.
And I think we have to be open to a result, which is the person we hire says, well, I don't think this is a business that can, here are the things you said you want to accomplish. And I haven't been able to make this business plan deliver those things. That has to be a possible answer.
Well, yeah, and I think my guess is it's not, if we are hiring someone to do a business plan and develop a business plan, that's something that we would work with them on, I'm sure. And I don't, I just don't want people to think they're going to come back at the end and say no. I think it's one of
No.
those things that there would be discussion in the midst of the process. If we're going down a road that doesn't seem tenable, then they would likely steer us in another direction.
Yeah, that's really what I meant.
Yeah, we can certainly be open to sort of hearing whatever that may or may not be. Darcy?
I think there has to be some element of, you know, that we obviously wouldn't be able to immediately do the things that might be desired in the business plan, that it would take a period of time to gather up the amount of money that is needed to do X, Y, or Z. So I think it would be likely that someone would right now say, well, you couldn't possibly do that now. But it's all just a matter of accumulating the cash,
Well,
yes.
yes, no, right? Because like it could be, yes, here's a 5-year plan, right? And here's if you accumulate the cash by year 3, you could do this if you did this, but not all of it is money. Some of it is capacity, or I mean, you can buy capacity with money in some cases, but you also need to evaluate, or usually business plans evaluate, why is my enterprise going to be competitive against the other competitors operating in the same space? So there's market research involved. And so it's not all money, and it can be like, here's all the things you want to do, and here's the timeline on which it's possible that you might be able to do them. But each of those things requires market research to figure out, like, I'm trying to kind of level set to say, you know, the point of a plan is to actually do all the due diligence to figure out what should you do, what can you do, and, you know, and what ought to get cut because it's going to cost you your ability to do this other thing you want to do.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think all that will come out in the development of the plan and the discussions that we have. And, you know, we may need some reality checks as we go along. And I think, Darcy, to your point, you know, about, you know, accumulating funds to do those things, I think that would be part of the business plan. Like, in my mind, if you're going to have a good business plan, you're going to take that into account, that, you know, years 1 through 2 or 3, you may only be able to do X, you know, and then you sort of build from there. So, and then, you know, that might, you know, there might also be built in, like, you know, ability to bring in other communities, and all of that should be part of the business plan, like what we want to do and sort of a time frame of how we want to target things. I will say that for me right now, I just feel like we're in such a crazy time of, I don't know, just we don't know how things are going to unfold, even in the national theater, if you will. So I just kind of feel like I would feel way better having someone sort of working on something that would, you know, be implementable for us to do. Even if it starts very small, I just think that's okay. We want to, in everything, I just feel like we want to ensure success. So I know sometimes things take a long time, but we just want to make sure it's something that we can do and that we're successful with. So that's, you know, sort of where I'm coming from. Darcy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think hopefully it'll be helpful that we already have a pretty extensive JPE document that the consultant could look at for parts of what would be needed in a business plan. You know, there's a lot in there about what we wanted the JPA to be able to do. So, just throwing that out.
And, you know, again, it's also the capacity that we have within our communities to do things, you know, I mean,
Right.
not as, you know, it's not like, there's limitless possibility, you know, I mean, in terms of, like, if we were doing even some sort of more large scale projects, certainly if we want to keep it local, you know, there's, at least in Amherst, you know, there's not a whole lot of area for any kind of larger solar development, right? But there may be other opportunities that we just have to sort of build in. But I'm just throwing that out there, that, again, keeping it realistic about, you know, we need to really look at what we have, you know, what are the resources we have. And I feel like that business plan should absolutely be looking at the 3 communities to identify those things as part of it. I mean, we have a solar feasibility analysis that we did in town, which I think would be very helpful to someone developing a business plan. So I think those are the kinds of things we want to sort of build in as well. So anyway, I know we've lost Adele and we lost Tom. So I don't know if there's anything else that people want to discuss. I would just say that I'd be happy to start maybe drafting an RFP to find someone to do the business plan. Maybe Ben, I might sort of get your assistance with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, so we can shoot for the next meeting, but I'm not going to promise. I would think we'd have some kind of a draft, but I won't say that it'll absolutely be complete by the next meeting, but we could certainly try to at least have the beginnings of something. So
Thank you for doing that.
sure,
Yeah.
I'm happy to. And Bob, I'm sorry, I don't mean to ignore you. I just, I always am very sensitive to your lack of much staffing, so happy to
No
loop you
staffing.
in. Yeah, no staffing. Happy to loop you into that process too. Like, if we could draft something and you want to comment before we get to the meeting, you know, so that we have something that's, you know, been looked at by all 3 communities as a
Well,
beginning.
I'm leaving on Monday for 3 weeks and I
Oh.
get just in time for the next meeting. So go for it.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to be considerate of Pelham, that's all.
Thank
Okay.
you. Appreciate
Um,
that.
Sure. All right, great. Then we have something for the next agenda. Other than that, the usual updates. So, I know we got way behind with the minutes. I will, try to get, I know Darcy, you're really great about taking notes and getting them to me, so we'll try to, work our way backwards, and I'll include the minutes from this meeting and possibly the one from several, I'm just gonna work backwards in terms of our updating the minutes, so we'll do it that way.
Thank you.
All right, okay, well,
Yeah.
great, thank you all so much. Our,
Great meeting.
Yeah,
great, our next meeting's in a month, so, we'll follow up then.
okay, bye all.
All right,
Thank-
everyone, take care.
Thanks.
Bye.